you don't buy a story because it was well written. You buy a story because of what it makes you feel.
Yeah.
Which means that in your marketing, you should be telling people how this movie will make them feel. Chuck, I made a movie. A whole movie, and nobody's watching it. So what happened?
Is your movie any good?
Objectively, yes. I avoided all 6 of the other 7 deadly sins of low-budget indie filmmaking.
All right, so your script works, your actors were rehearsed, your art department actually existed, your shots were designed, your sound didn't hurt anyone, and your edit made sense.
Exactly.
Okay, well then congratulations. You made a movie. Did you remember to tell anybody that you made a movie?
Ooh, I did not. Welcome to Indie Film Podcast. I'm Victoria.
And I am Chuck, and this week we're covering our final sin, marketing and administration for your indie film.
Which is very important because it's difficult to sell a film if you can't prove that you own it.
Right on. So should we start there, Victoria? How do you prove that you own the movie that you want to sell?
You have to do all the boring administrative paperwork that nobody wants to do because that's not the fun part of filmmaking.
No, it is not. Nobody gets into filmmaking because they like filling out documents and creating documents.
Which, I feel like there is that person that exists on every film set, and they are vital, and they do enjoy it, and they're probably a Virgo. But that's okay. I think I got that right.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know the astrological signs, but it sounds good to me.
Yeah, I feel like it sounds like I know what I'm talking about.
Those organizational Virgos, those OCD Virgos.
Oh, but they like spreadsheets.
Oh, yeah. What's important? Somebody's got to like them.
Somebody has to like the legal documents and spreadsheets. Okay. So we actually do have just a quick breakdown of like the timeline of when a lot of this marketing and administration stuff has to happen. And
before we get into that, can we kind of like put an asterisk on this episode that we are going to be talking about marketing, but we're not talking about creating a film that's marketable. Correct?
Oh, yeah. No, that's like the biggest difference between a Hollywood film and an indie film, right? Like,
yeah.
In an indie film, you get to make the art you want, but you do have to put in the work to find your audience and make sure they see it. Hollywood has the audience and the existing IP and makes the movie based on that.
Yes. And that's, I think, why a lot of times marketing gets kind of a bad name in indie film circles is because they're seeing it from the top-down end.
Yeah.
Like, let's find out what the market is and create something that fits the audience rather than let me create an idea that I have and then do my best to find it.
Yeah.
Those are very, very different things. And you're well rehearsed in being able to do the latter.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. So I'm excited to pick your brain on this episode. So along with that, do you want to go or do you want to move into the phases then?
Yeah. Just like a quick timeline because I know this is our 7th sin and it's because I thought it was funny to make this one last because it's always the one that gets forgotten.
For sure.
Nobody ever does it, so it would go last. But realistically, the marketing for your film starts before your script is done. And all the administrative work, your krill, which I'm pretty sure is fish of some kind.
Yeah, that's what whales eat.
Yeah,
Krill.
there we go. Your crew deal memos, which apparently now I'm shortening to krill.
Nice.
They're very important and should be in place and reviewed by your attorney before you hire your actors.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Those are the important things, your image releases, your location releases. So those are the things that I mean, well, as well as your budget. Those are the things that I'm talking about when I say administrative work, because those aren't the fun, exciting parts of making a movie. That's not grabbing a camera and running out and having fun.
No.
That's taking photos of every receipt.
Yes. What we call sock drawer stuff.
Sock drawer.
And that's a quote, and I can't find out who it was attributed to, but I thought it was Charles Bukowski. But they asked him why he was such a prolific writer, and he said, "I keep my sock drawer organized."
Oh.
And it's that idea that if you have all of these elements taken care of before you dive into the creative realm on a project, then you don't have to be stopping and thinking about it.
Yeah, because it's not taking up your brain space anymore.
Yeah. So it's good to do that ahead of time. So do you want to go over the phases? I'm curious about this. What are the phases of marketing, Victoria? I need to know because I've only ever screwed this up.
That's okay. Don't worry. I've learned a lot of these lessons the hard way too.
Right on.
Okay, so I've divided it into 4 main phases.
Okay.
So phase 1 is development, right? That is when your film is in development. Your script is not even finalized yet.
Okay.
And this is the time when you should be getting your main producer or producers on board.
Okay.
Not necessarily executive producers, though bonus points if you got those this early.
Yeah, if you got people with some money, then bring them on as soon as you can.
Fantastic. Get them so excited and into this cult following fast. No,
Yes.
But your producers that are your line producers, the people that are actually managing your scheduling, your budgeting, those Virgos I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
So
Get
those
the Virgos right away.
Get the Virgos on board. I don't know. I really hope that's not wrong.
It's
saying
okay.
it a lot.
We're going with it.
We're going with it. Okay.
I mean, astrology is just all BS anyway, so we can just say whatever we want.
Whoa. I like believing that the stars have guided me to a perfect alignment for something in some kind of retrograde.
And I would like to believe that a fat white man comes down the chimney every Christmas Eve and brings all my gifts. So
I would too. Then I wouldn't have to do so much Christmas shopping. Jesus.
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so you also want to find your audience and your niche at this point. This, before your script is finalized, is when you are researching your audience and where they are and where your film sits as a movie. You're also setting your budget early. You're planning your runway, which means you are not making this movie in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You're ideally doing this in several months or over a year from now.
Right on.
And you're locking in your fundraising plan. Where is your money going to come from? It does help to have your budget set just maybe a couple of days before that, or at least a working budget that you've got.
Yeah.
But that way you can kind of lock in how you're going to go about your fundraising and what process you're going to do.
Okay, so I just want to reiterate that so to make sure I understand it. So phase 1 on the marketing and admin is to basically, before your script's done, you just want to have an idea of what your budget is.
Yep.
And then start doing everything that you need to do paperwork-wise to move forward and spend that cash.
Yeah.
Sweet.
There we go. Phase 1. That's all happening while you're finalizing your script.
Okay, what's phase 2?
Pre-production.
Nice.
So your script's probably pretty much done at this point.
Right
Maybe
on.
there's still some subtle polishing
It's
happen.
never done until the day that you go on set and hit record. It always changes.
That's very true. Okay, so this is the point where you are going to start building your cults, because I think that's a fun phrasing, but please don't actually start a cult and serve people Kool-Aid that will kill them. Don't do that.
Why not? It's a good movie.
I mean, it's real life too, though. That's happened.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, Mother God. That was a great series on HBO.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
If you want to watch a movie about cults, that's a documentary. It was awesome.
It was wild.
Yeah.
That was wild.
But that's, they actually did a really good job on fundraising in that film, too.
Yeah.
It gave me some good ideas on how to create a cult and make some money.
Selling
so
colloidal silver.
I keep jumping in here. So
phase 2, cult, like the runway, if you will, is your pre-production phase. And you're building your cult, you're securing your chain of title, which means getting insurance, getting location releases, getting those crew deal memos, locking in all the documents that prove you have the rights to this music, say.
Yeah.
Things like that. And obviously some of the music you're not going to know until the very end, and hopefully. But you could certainly start chatting with composers and get a composer in contract at this particular juncture.
Yeah.
That would be a great thing to do. But you have to start this early with your paperwork. Make sure you're knowing how much you're guaranteeing people, how much you're doing or not doing on the contract side, and maybe having an attorney look it over just to make sure it's actually all good, because no AI should not write your contracts for you.
No, don't lean on that. You need to have somebody double check it. And I do want to say that once your film does get picked up for distribution, or when you submit your film for distribution, they do request all of these documents.
They do. Because you need to prove you own this movie.
Yes.
Otherwise, you just own a liability lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you should probably hire a BTS photographer at this point.
Okay.
Start looking around, start planning for that as you're beginning to schedule out your filming days.
Mm-hmm.
Find a day where you know most of, if not all of, your leads are going to be on set together. And if you only have the budget for a professional BTS photographer for one day, make that the one day. Because you want a BTS photographer on set.
Okay, so basically phase 2, you're saying that phase 2 of marketing and administration, we're just going to get all of our documents in order and then get our cast and crew ready to rock and roll.
Exactly.
But you need to have the paperwork ready.
Yes.
And the plan.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I like it.
These are important.
Phase 3, what's that?
Sort of a boots on the ground, which is just production. When your film's in production.
Right on.
You are tracking everything. You are tracking every single expense.
Don't forget to take pictures of receipts or hold receipts.
And you can just store them in an album on your phone. That's fine. And you can
Yeah.
go through and deal with it all later. But take the photo. Always record everything from the very first penny you spend until this film is actively streaming somewhere.
Yeah.
Record every single penny.
Nice.
And then also just document everything as you
Yeah.
go along. Not just continuity photos for the sake of your shoot, but also taking photos of props and table reads and everybody getting along and what sort of camera setups you're doing and grabbing all these assets and all this content that you can use to help promote your film on social media. And it's okay if your social promotions don't line up with exactly what's happening on set. That's fine.
Yeah.
You're allowed to market this whenever, but unless you actually capture those assets as you're going along, you're never going to have them.
Yeah.
You have to do it in the moment.
Yeah, you make sure that you do grab those when you can. And it's
need to do
something
it.
that really sucks if you miss it because you're missing out on a bajillion posts that you can have after your film's released or when it's on tour at film festivals.
Yeah, my least favorite thing to tell people is like when your film is done, if you're pulling screenshots to use as all of your promotional stuff, you failed to market your film.
Yeah, it doesn't
Sorry.
work. Yeah.
They are important. Screen grabs are important, but if
For
that's
sure.
everything you're doing and that's all you've got to work with for poster art and that's it, then yeah, you didn't market your film. I'm so sorry.
Oops.
Whoopsies.
It happens.
Then you're also going to start delivery on any of the fundraising promises. So if you went the crowdfunding route,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of those deliverables are going to start happening
Mm-hmm.
during the actual production of the film.
Yeah.
So if you had any, Q&As with your cast or crew or on-set visits, which are always risky, so be careful in how you offer those.
Yes.
And make sure you tell people that you are not covering travel and accommodations and just spell that out real clear in your fundraiser.
Yes. I love it when random people come on set. It's so much fun.
It doesn't slow anything down.
They get to see how slow things actually move on a film set.
I know, it's not exciting. They always think
Like
it's
it
going
took
to be the
like
best.
3 hours to get like 1 minute of video. Yep.
Yes, it
did.
does. Yes, it does. You're welcome.
Sometimes it does.
So those are your production things.
Okay.
And then your phase 4 is during post-production and release. And this is when you're doing all of your final deliverables. So making sure that you've strung all those crew deal memos, location releases, et cetera, into a nice little PDF package.
Yeah.
So that you have one PDF to upload instead of 5 billion.
Nice.
And you're getting your music cue sheet and you're getting your captions, which if you didn't put that in your budget originally, make sure you throw that in your budget too.
Yep.
If you're not going to manually do all those captions yourself, and frankly, at this point, I think a lot of those places, like I don't want to say the name
Yeah.
of certain self-distribution hubs, if you will. It seems as though they want you to just buy their captions. It doesn't matter what
it
format
does.
you use.
And yes, it's annoying. You might just have to fork over like an extra $100 or $200 to pay for somebody to do the captions
Yeah.
the way that they want to have it done. So
Just keep that in mind
keep
and maybe
that.
make that a part of your budget early on.
Good call.
Because you're even in post-production, you're still spending so much money on this movie.
Yeah.
And hopefully this is also the point where you have gotten to, you are no longer screaming into the void.
Yes.
And you have found your exact audience and they are becoming this sort of echo chamber, in a good way, echo chamber for you in your film. They're resharing your content. They're
Yeah.
excited and highly anticipating everything. And you're also putting together your EPK, which is your electronic press kit, which you will need for a lot of the higher end, bigger festivals, if you will. Any sort of promotional deal, or if you get a theatrical distribution run anywhere, you will need an EPK and you will have
Yeah.
to have that put together. And it's not fair that an indie filmmaker has to do all the marketing, but it is very real. I will say there is one alternative. There is one cheat code here. There is a way you do not have to market your film.
Oh, what's that? Give me that answer.
That answer is double your film budget,
Oh,
take half of that,
yeah.
and invest it into a marketing company to do all of this for you.
Yeah, which there's a lot of snake oil
Oh, yeah.
salespeople in marketing too.
Yes.
So that's scary
It's
to dump
very
that
scary.
much money on
Yeah.
something because a lot of them go on monthly rates
Yeah.
or whatever. It's like you're just going to pay me $2,500 a month and I'll quote unquote promote your film.
And I will give you a very secret little cheat code here. If they're charging you $2,500 a month, they are not worth it. If they're charging $5,000 a month, they probably know what they're doing.
Oh, dang. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money.
It's so much money. It is a stupid amount of money. Marketing is expensive. It is expensive. So.
Well, do you want to go over a quick like time saving hack that you kind of taught me as far as promoting on social media? Because we do have a time saver.
Which
little TikTok for you there.
I like it. It's fun. It's a different TikTok.
Yes.
That's not the vertical video TikTok. That's just a clock TikTok.
Well, what do you have for vertical video time savers?
Is to schedule all your posts in advance. It's totally fine to go in, schedule yourself a half a day, and create all of your assets and schedule them out for the week, or you could go up to 2 weeks. You could technically go out as far as you want. I don't know if I would recommend that because you kind of want to be watching it and seeing what's performing well and what's not performing well and stepping in again to course correct based on the content that's actually doing what it's supposed to do. But you can go in and schedule this. And if you already work in Adobe, then you have access to Adobe Express.
Yes.
And Adobe Express has a scheduler in it. If you're one of those people who's absolutely paranoid that working through a scheduling hub or center like, I don't know, Sprout Social or Hootsuite or any of those things, if you're worried that that is not going to do good things for you because you believe random creators on the internet when they tell you when you schedule through an aggregator hub, then it damages your rankings. Personally, I've never actually seen that happen.
Okay.
But maybe it's because I don't have millions of followers, so I wouldn't notice.
Yeah. I mean, if any of us have millions of followers, they're not watching an episode or listening to an episode about marketing. They
probably
know
not.
What the hell's going on.
They know what they needed. So those aggregators are not going to damage anything. But if you're that worried about it, totally fine. Every single one of the major social hubs or platforms, I guess, has a way for you to go in and schedule these posts out in advance too. So you can natively schedule it through each and every individual one of those. That would be a pain in the butt, and I would never do that because I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
But you could if you wanted to.
And limiting the time that you put into social media posts, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that with this podcast. And it's kind of one of those things where we've been on Reddit subreddits where they talk about podcast promotion. And a lot of times they say, don't get on social media. Like the vertical videos don't matter. Yeah. But at the same time, what we've seen is that like when you promote things on all platforms, it just kind of raises the level of everything up.
The phrase is rising tide raises all ships.
Rising tide raises all ships. And if you have a production company that you want to promote, if you have a lot of followers, that's going to be easier for you to find funding.
It can be a lot easier for you to find funding. Do not assume that your audience is immediately going to want to donate to anything that you're making. You have to make them care enough to want to donate to it. But it does open more doors and it does give you more opportunities. But more importantly, it gives you opportunities to help identify the people that are actually going to want to watch your movie. Yeah. Which you can walk into a pitch meeting for a private equity or crowd equity or whatever type of funding you want to go on that side. Yeah. You can walk into a pitch meeting with that data, and that will be enticing to those people because they may not donate to your movie, but they'll buy a ticket.
Yeah, good point. That's good.
So,
and I think like approaching it from a point of what is your movie going to do for the audience?
Yeah.
Because nobody really cares about your script. Sorry, everybody. Like nobody, you put in a lot of hard work to write that thing.
You did.
And you put a lot of hard work into making your movie, but honestly, like nobody really gives a crap. You know?
No, but
just as it's presented.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a little bit of grease in the wheels to get people to understand why that script can be important to them.
Yeah, because you don't buy a story because it was well written. You buy a story because of what it makes you feel.
Yeah.
Which means that in your marketing, you should be telling people how this movie will make them feel.
Yeah.
There you go. There's the secret. Marketing is just letting people know why this is valuable to them specifically. That's it. I think everybody kind of knows that, but it's a little hard to execute sometimes.
Yeah, and it's in this day and age, it feels like you have to just keep executing it over and over and over and over again in different ways with vertical videos and pictures and posts and pictures with text on them. And
you're going to have to test things.
Yeah.
You're going to have to post so much content that doesn't work until you find the thing that does.
Yeah.
which is a pain in the butt. And it requires a lot of time and a lot of energy. But once you find it, then you're set.
Nice.
It's just a little bit difficult in the beginning. Okay.
Well, do you have an example of a time when you were promoting something, maybe you stumbled, because you said that you've learned a lot of these lessons the hard way, right? Do you have an example, like a specific example of when you completely beefed up the marketing on something versus starting it and running it correctly from start to finish?
Yeah, I think not the fundraiser I'm in the middle of now. The fundraiser I'm in the middle of now, I planned this thing out a year in advance.
Yes.
Everyone in my close circle knew that this was happening. We were launching on Earth Day and we were running through May for mental health awareness because the film is centered around men's mental health. The entire campaign was intentional and everybody knew it was coming.
Yeah. And you did a crowdfunding on that and you set it for however many, I don't know how many days you set it for, but
we went for 45 days.
And how long did it take for you to actually hit the goal?
We hit our goal on day 13.
Okay.
14.
So like a third of the way through already you hit the goal and,
yes.
and anybody else donating is going above and beyond that.
Yes, because we had stretch goals in place, ready to launch immediately, letting people know, even though we're at 100%, don't worry, we'll still use more money. Please don't be afraid to give us more money.
So this original crowdfunding was just for the production.
Yes.
And then the plan is or was to continue to fundraise for post-production.
Yes. We had planned, because the film is so centered around men's mental health, we wanted to launch the big bulk of the campaign in May and have it running during Mental Health Awareness Month. And that was for production. And then we're filming July through August. And then in November, when the Movember Foundation does their big push for the testicular cancer, but Movember Foundation is making more of a push to go into the mental health space.
Yeah.
So trying to partner alongside all of that, not with them specifically, because they are a very large organization and there's a lot of red tape involved in that.
For sure.
Not that specifically, but trying to have that messaging sort of echoed and reinforced by other things that were being posted at the time to raise the rest of the money for post-production and marketing.
Nice.
But by then we'd have more of the assets from the actual shoot to use in that fundraiser. So it was going to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Now that we're moving things up, and don't get me wrong, it's fantastic.
Good
and
problem
it's
to have.
Yeah, so great. So great. I just didn't really expect people to be, I don't know, so excited. So let the story resonate. So I guess people felt like this was important, which is great. But that was a bit of a surprise. So you got to be ready to pivot if things change on you. If you get, your funding really early or something misses the mark and the fundraiser doesn't go well.
Yeah.
Because
how do you adjust?
Yeah. You have to have those plans in place on what's going to happen, because the plan can't be, I'll just personally text and harass more people. That might work sometimes, but people are going to get tired of it if you keep doing that.
Yeah, you only have so many times you can just keep pushing the same people. And that's I've done that. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've all done that as filmmakers.
No, and we will keep doing it.
You
Don't
still
you worry.
want to make sure, because the algorithm might be hiding your fundraiser from your friends and family. So they need to be made aware of it.
Or worse, your friends and family may have said, please hide this content from me.
I'll continue to follow this
but
friend of mine.
I don't want to see this ever again.
I don't want to see all the spammy notifications.
Yeah. But this is not the first fundraiser I've run, and the last fundraiser that I ran, we did hit our goal, but I was really leaning on the fact that we had a mix. And I do think personally I recommend a mix of funding for your campaign. If you want to do crowdfunding, please don't bank on crowdfunding for every single penny. Yeah. Because that's a very, very difficult goal, and it is not 2010 anymore, and crowdfunding isn't what it used to be anymore. Yeah. So you need to sort of temper that with private equity funding, crowd equity funding, or self-funding, which are your other main options for funding. And so for the last fundraiser, I guess, big fundraiser that I did for a film, we knew that we had private equity funding accounting for the bulk of our campaign.
Nice.
And that was great. But then we needed to account for, just the little additional odds and ends that we wanted to raise for it because we definitely wanted to make sure everybody got paid.
Yeah.
So that number got to be pretty low. That the number we were crowdfunding for, I want to say it was closer to 7,000, like 7,500 something. So keeping it below that 10K number,
Yeah.
which looks really nice because it doesn't look too intimidating on the page. But I didn't do a good job of keeping in mind the timelines for things.
Okay.
And I also didn't do a good job of planning for some of the deliverables that we were promising in the campaign that I had ordered. There were poker chips that had to be custom made first.
Okay.
And then sent off to this company that embeds those into a whiskey glass.
Yeah.
I did not take into account the production lead time for both of those things to happen
Okay.
consecutively. In my brain, that was concurrent.
Okay.
So we were definitely late on delivering some of the things that we'd promised in the campaign, which is not a good look.
Yeah. Anytime I'm working on a production, I always do my best to lean away from giving away physical items on those crowdfunding things because it just leads into a nightmare. And you end up having to sit around and box stuff up yourself, which I've actually never done, but I've heard horror stories about it, and it just makes sense in my brain. It's like, oh, you know what would be really cool? This movie has a yada, yada, yada tchotchke in it.
Yeah.
And let's make a copy of that. And then if people donate, then they get that. It's like, well, get ready to be working your butt off.
Because those will be expensive. Mm-hmm. Those will take up a lot of time, and they will take up a lot of your time, too.
Yeah, it's the time thing that's really tricky when you're in pre-production. You're moving up to trying to shoot a film, and instead you're worried about mailing out stupid little things to people.
Custom hat.
Nice products that you had printed out.
And to be fair, I'm not going to say that I would never do a tangible deliverable, but especially as I've gotten older, I don't want a bunch of little trinkets.
Yeah, Temu objects.
Yeah, I don't want that in my life. But I'm not the end all be all of people. Plenty of people probably.
Young people might like stuff because they don't already have a house full of junk.
Yeah, right. So there are other options.
That's who you want to have following you anyway, are the young people.
Yeah, they'll actually share your content again.
Yeah, the tobacco companies try to get those smokers at a young age because it's like once they're hooked on your
if you hook them
art,
at 16.
Yeah, you can just ride it until they die. So that's
perfect. It's fantastic.
Right? I don't know. I guess I don't know much about marketing, but I'm just guessing you want to get those young people.
Well, it kind of depends on your film, right?
True. Yeah.
And this is a lot of the finding the audience thing, and I think that is really the bulk of, as long as all of your paperwork is in order, and as long as you are committed to realizing you need to be doing all this content creation as you go. The number one thing that I really wish I could impress upon people in this podcast is the importance of finding your audience.
Yeah.
Because your audience is not everyone. Your film is not for everyone. And if it is a bad movie.
Good point.
Unless it's Forrest Gump.
Oh, there we go.
Because that movie is for everyone. No, I'm kidding. No, it's just being honest, right? Your movie's not going to be for everyone. And I went through and did some sort of like pre-number thoughts around things, right?
Okay.
So, for example, if you're making a horror movie, which I love,
nice.
I cannot imagine a world where people would not love a horror movie. But there are certain demographics that are less likely to want a horror movie. Obviously, children are probably not even going to watch it. So in that case, no, the younger crowd really isn't what you want. And then also, anyone, male or female, over the age of 65 is probably not going to want to watch a horror film. So right away, you know that those two demographics aren't your key. That does not mean that there are no under 18-year-olds or over 65-year-olds who will watch your movie. That doesn't mean that. It just means it's not your primary target. So when you're looking at ad spend or spending your marketing budget, you should not be aiming for those particular demographics. If they like it, it will find them. That is what your organic reach is supposed to do. But your ad spend going out to these people, the actual dollars that you've worked so hard to get, do not waste them on a demographic that is not going to want to watch your movie.
So if you're doing a crowdfunding for your horror film, don't make a post on Facebook and boost it because that's a bunch of older people.
Typically, Facebook skews older.
Yeah.
So, don't throw all of your ad spend. I'm not saying don't throw any ad spend there because obviously there are people under 65 on Facebook. But maybe that's not where you put the majority of your ad spend because you're not going to see the return on investment for it. It's just not there. And then same thing for kids.
Yeah.
And TikTok is primarily a younger crowd. So if you know that the younger demographic isn't going to want your movie, maybe you aren't putting your ad spend on TikTok either, which means you're on Instagram. Beautiful. No problem with that. That does not mean don't post your content to the other platforms because, again, that is not the exclusive audience that is on there. It's just a matter of tempering things.
You just want to make sure that you're maximizing on your money that you spend on ads. Very cool.
So alternatively, you're making a rom-com.
Yeah.
Men 45 and over do not... It's not that they don't see rom-coms. They are statistically less likely.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's fine. I think we can all think in gray areas here as filmmakers.
Right. And
hopefully.
This is not... And this research is... Well, it used to be a lot easier to find. You could just go to Google Scholar and you could find all of these data points. And it was very easy to access. And now there's a lot of AI slop articles on the internet. So you've got to filter through a little bit more.
Yeah.
Always check your resources. Always find the peer-reviewed studies that actually have this data in it so you know that it's there and it's real, and check the date and how old it is. Because if it's super old, social media marketing changes enough that it's going to have some variations. So try to find a newer article that either reinforces that point or doesn't, because like LinkedIn is having a moment right now. Why?
Nice.
I don't know, but LinkedIn's having a moment and everyone's excited about it.
Most boring and plastic social media platform in existence. Sorry,
pretty much.
I hate LinkedIn. It's just everybody, I'm so happy that I'm doing my job. My career is so great and everything is wonderful. This is how we maximize. There's so many maximization posts on there.
Okay. But I am going to throw this out there for you. One, as a filmmaker, doesn't that make your content sure stand out when it's in the creative realm and a very business-focused platform?
Ooh.
All of a sudden, people are getting a little bit of a break from the one social media platform their office probably allows them to be on during the workday. So just keep that in mind. And two, there are a lot of large networking groups for executives on these things.
Yeah.
You can go in, you can find a mentor, and you can get some help and practice in pitching to executives, in finding a local Toastmasters group. Find ways to improve the things you don't already do. If you have never pitched to a board of executives, you should not start with private equity pitches for your film. That is a bad place to start. You start with finding a mentor who will guide you through the right ways to do this so that you can walk in feeling prepared to those investment meetings. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to learn where you're at in the process.
Very cool.
So those would be my best marketing tips for finding your audience, preparing yourself, and making sure your administrative documents are in a row, and make sure that you bought production insurance.
Oh, yes. Production insurance.
That's it.
That's super, super important. All right. Well, anything else that you want to share? Was that putting a pin
I will
in it?
throw out that if you would like our budget template for free, you can subscribe to our newsletter and just get it. So if you don't feel like making a whole budget yourself, you can just download ours.
Yep. And we set up a newsletter for Indie Film Podcast, which is definitely a marketing thing. But that's because we wanted to start to have control over communicating with our audience.
Yeah.
Which you don't know on YouTube or on
any
Instagram or Spotify. We don't know if our podcast is going to pop up in your feed. That's completely 100% in the hands of Google, in the hands of Spotify.
Yeah.
However, if you email the people that want to follow you, so if you're a filmmaker out there, I highly recommend newsletter.
Get a newsletter.
Get
a newsletter. That is one of the only, your website and your newsletter subscribers are the only owned audience you have. For everything else, you are at the mercy of algorithms and eyeballs.
Yep. And if you're having a fundraiser, you're going to have so much better response sending out a newsletter to 1,000 people than making a post on Instagram, I bet, with even like 10,000 followers.
Yeah.
If you can get 500 to 1,000 people on your newsletter, you're cooking.
Yeah.
I would bet.
That's a good number.
Yeah, and and
if you can keep your open rate above 8 to 10%, feel good about that. It's hard to get people excited to open an email.
Yep.
So feel good about a 10% open rate.
Good stuff. Yeah. Well, should we talk about our featured filmmaker of the week?
Yeah.
Let's do it. So this week's featured filmmaker of the week, which is at the bottom of this gigantic document I have open, is Matty Killen. And he's a working director of photography. He actually has a tip for us. He built a dolly out of skateboard wheels, a door frame, and PVC pipe. So he's used that actually on an award-winning music video, and it only cost him 20 British pounds to put that together.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And that's a good little tip. So currently he just finished writing his first feature film, and they are wrapping the proof of concept as of right now. So we're going to be playing his reel over the top of this conversation, but it looked really good. So I wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors.
Proof of concept, great way to market your film.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Right on. Well, if you want to submit to be featured filmmaker of the week, go to indiefilmpodcast.com/submit. You will find a link there. And please, when you do submit, include links to downloadable, trailers for your films or demo
BTS
reels,
footage,
anything you got there that we can throw on top of the video part of this podcast or on social media. So,
yeah.
Excellent. Anything you'd like to add, or shall we succinctly say farewell?
I think we should succinctly say farewell.
Bye.
Bye.